My Lords, I declare my interest as a freeholder of a mixed-use building, 15 metres tall, constructed in 2018 post Grenfell in Norwich. Now, addressing the consequences of the use of aluminiumised composite materials in pre-Grenfell tall buildings is the priority that the Building Safety Act is meant to resolve, and a commitment that should remain undimmed. But unlike my noble friend, Lord Young, I want to constrain my comments to the effect of the proposed regulations that is contemplated to be introduced from the 1st of October on the construction of new homes, not the existing homes. And that doesn't mean I don't care about the existing homes, but I think we need to view part of this legislation, these regulations, through the lens of the construction industry. Now, it's common ground we need more homes. Not only is it to be driven by the UK population, which the ONS tells us is only just now shy of 70 million, but also because you can't sell capitalism to people who can't accumulate capital. And the best way of doing that for most families is to do by building a stake in your own home. So nothing we should do should discourage or disincentivise the need to build the homes our nation needs. Now, there are enough headwinds in construction already, and the noble lady, the Minister, probably has some of those ringing in her ears from her lunchtime meeting with SME builders. And there are more headwinds to come, and the BSA levy is potentially one of those headwinds which could chill construction still further at a very delicate fiscal moment. And that's important because if there's no building, there's no levy, and there's no money to fix the cladding. Now, we know there's a crisis of confidence in London's building industry, and I'm going to focus on London just for the moment, because a lack of housing starts in London is going to imperil the government's nationwide house building ambitions. All historic sources on housing starts to point to London being in crisis. The Molineux data shows that just 2,000 private homes started in the first half of the year, a record low. MHCLG data showed that the total homes started in the entirety of the 12 months to quarter 1 2025 is 60% lower than the previous record low, set in 1990. And the GLA's affordable data shows that only 347 homes started in Q1, a record low following lows in 24-25. Brought right up to date, the interim statistics show that in the last quarter for London, new starts were 40% lower than the previous low point, with nothing over 18 metres started anywhere. My Lords, developers in London are on strike. But if we can't sort out building in London, then we'll never get roofs over people's heads nationally. Now, this isn't just about the levy holding things back. House prices have risen in the capital by 1% since 2015, a previous high point. But Berkeley Homes tells me that build costs have risen by over 40% in the same period, directionally half on materials and half on regulatory burdens. So we know that viability is under threat. Now, but if there's a consent, because planning has previously been fingered as the hold-up for development, but if you now get your planning consent, you now need to get a building safety regulator approval before you start digging foundations for all those dwelling homes that are excluded from the levy. Now, so it's the building safety regulator that is putting speed bumps in the way. Now, these regulations provide for applications to be made to the regulator before the 1st of October next year, or the levy will apply. And that sounds like a long way away. But, my Lords, I'm told that it's currently taking 44 weeks, at best, for the regulator to apply to an application. More often than not, that replies in the negative. I've heard of a refusal from the regulator that was evidenced by a single word: roof. And that's just not good enough. It's already too late to apply and hope for approval with just 50 weeks to go to the 1st of October. And that's not helping either many of the thousands of already completed homes in London doing nothing but eating their heads off in interest for want of a final approval. So I've done some research, and I've learned that the reasons for all this relate to the staffing and transition hasn't really been sorted out between HSE and the Building Safety Regulator. There's far too much subjective interpretation between professionals, each of whom may be correct, just in their difference of preference but either of which could be safely implemented. The regulator's IT system is incompatible with the software that all developers use, in particular because it doesn't use the indexes. And that's important, because rather than online click on the screen and be transported instantly to one of the thousands of A0 plans through the index, the regulator's IT system, I am told, means you've got to search manually through all 1,000 sheets yourself. It's hardly surprising it's taking so long. And then, of course, we've got the numbers. An additional £60 to £70, up to £90 in Fulham per square metre in London, and direction £25 to £35 elsewhere. Now, I have consulted with developers. More than ever, time is money, and reluctantly they are prepared to accept the levy. So that's good news. So there's an alignment on the need and the willingness to pay. But their view, and I can agree with this, and I'm going to ask the Minister whether she can agree with this, that before the levy comes into play, the regulator needs to sort out the relationship between the Building Safety Regulator and the HSE. The software needs to be made compatible with BIM, so we actually get some productivity. We've got to agree the objective accepted standards between what is an acceptable way of building these new homes, rather than be subject to arbitrary preference. And there needs to be a response within 4 weeks, not 44 weeks. Now, if the builders are making that proposal, I think that's a fair bargain. And I think the government should accept it, because unless they do, the developers' strike will continue. And then no levy will be created at all. And that doesn't help anybody, still less the people for my noble friend Lord Young is most concerned. So, and I think it is important that we think also about the cash flow. And I've looked carefully at the regulations and the implementation. I am concerned that, particularly in a large-scale flattered development, should one go ahead, then the entirety of the levy, and remember it's £90 a square metre in Fulham, would be paid on the entire development at the point at which the very first part of that development had a completion certificate. So just at the point at which the developer is suffering greatest cash stress, the entire bill would be due. And I'm concerned for the cash flow viability of these organisations, noting that the Financial Times has reported that in the entirety of London, a city of 10 million people, in the last quarter, less than 24 new flats have been sold. And that's a real crisis point. So, will the Minister recognise that until the system is working smoothly, nobody will start anything over 18 metres, unless we can get the workability, the timescales and the IT right, the strike will continue. Will the Minister give a commitment that at the point at which the levy is introduced, approval times can be down to, say, a reasonable 4 weeks, because time is money and money is risk. And on that basis, I think there'll be a grudging acceptance, but an acceptance nonetheless by the industry, that we can move forward, and then the people for whom my noble friend Lord Young is most concerned can be remediated more quickly. Because unless we get an accommodation between a government and the development industry on the positive going forward, they won't be sorted out, and the government will stand zero chance of meeting its ambitious housing targets, which I think we should all endorse.
To listen to the